Okay.
Well, it's good that you're in charge, Sarah, because can you take us through our first poll?
Sure, Judy. Our first poll question is, what are the greatest learning and development challenges that your organization must address? Is it connecting learning to career and leadership development, meeting the needs of a mobile workforce, determining ways to better engage learners, reacting to just-in-time needs from an organization, or increased demand for more skilled individuals? Okay, it looks like about 30% have voted, so we'll give it a few more moments. We've just reached over the 50% mark. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results. Judy, it looks like 48% chose connecting learning to career and leadership development, followed by 28% determining ways to better engage learners.
Well, it sounds like those two actually could kind of go together in what we're talking about. But yeah, that's part of what we're finding is that, you know, connecting learning to career and leadership development is always a big one. Whenever we do any kind of poll, we find that, you know, it's that career development and leadership development coming to the top. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk about what is this thing called modern mentoring as you go forward. Well, modern mentoring actually goes beyond the traditional one-to-one mentoring model, and it embraces a wide variety of models that organizations can implement. I mean, look at all the benefits of mentoring, and think about it if you have ever been involved in any type of mentoring partnership, the benefits that it's brought to you and the organization overall. There's a difference between the focuses of a mentoring initiative and the way in which that initiative is implemented. The focuses of mentoring are ever expanding. You know, our clients use it for onboarding, for diversity and inclusion, to reinforce training. We even have one client that uses it with their suppliers. You know, the traditional focuses, though, of career development and succession planning and leadership are still there. But what we want to do today is, again, get you to think about some more modern ways to think about mentoring and kind of open up your thoughts. So what are some of the common objectives for modern mentoring? Well, first of all, it can increase the number of individuals that are able to even participate in a mentoring program. It can increase retention through multiple generations, and that kind of goes with the first one because you're increasing the number of individuals able to participate. It increases overall engagement, which again follows with the number of individuals increased and retention, and you're able to implement a more broad and flexible model on what you're doing. So once again, Sarah, can you take us through our next poll?
Sure, Judy. Our second poll question is, what is your current workforce demographic? Is it A, a mix of baby boomers and millennials, B, mostly baby boomers, C, mostly millennials, or D, unsure? So about half have voted, Judy. So far, it's a mix. All right, looks like voting is slowed down. Judy, it looks like 73% have voted for a mix of baby boomers and millennials, followed by 11% with mostly baby boomers.
Okay. All right, well, this kind of makes sense, and actually, when you're talking about those millennials, we kind of want to lead that into thinking about why this shift to modern mentoring as individuals go through. All the research that we are seeing is indicating that the populations that most organizations are focusing on are the millennials, and millennials is a top request. This is happening for a variety of reasons. The biggest one is based on career development, and the reasons are that Millennials prefer to have more options. They want to be more in control of their career development and what they're doing. They're gravitating towards a more equal form of mentoring in what they're doing. You know, the traditional kind of top-down matching is less and less meeting their needs, and they really want to get away from that type of thing of matching based on job title and more on where can I get the development I desire. And notice the focus is on desire. Research is also showing us that they prefer mentoring in a more casual setting, which brings us to the introduction of some of those modern ways in which mentoring can be implemented. So, looking at the 5 types of modern mentoring, we've got flash mentoring, there's virtual mentoring, group mentoring, reverse mentoring, and speed mentoring. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard about these different concepts around mentoring, and we're going to discuss each of these in more detail. And as we discuss them, if you have any specific questions about a specific type of mentoring, please put them in the question box so that we can kind of address them. We're going to try to catch some questions on each of these types of mentoring. So let's start with flash mentoring. What is it? Well, it's also known as session-based mentoring, or we've heard people call it project-based mentoring. But the whole idea is it allows you to achieve a short-term objective, do it in a low-pressure environment, and you're focusing really on single meetings in what you're doing and taking that forward. So when do you use it? Well, one of the first ways is if you need to gain advice and support for learning a hard skill. Now, it doesn't work quite so much for the more soft skills like, leadership and coaching and listening and these types of things. But when you're looking for support or practice on a hard skill, it's a great way to use it. Also, if you need to better understand the best practices within an organization or on a specific role in what you're doing. One of the things that we find is when individuals come to an organization and they're brand new to the organization, they may come with all the skills, but they don't understand the culture always that the organization has in how they use those skills. So having somebody to help them work through that organizational culture and how to maneuver it and how to work through and keep from, kind of stubbing their toe can be a great way to have flash mentoring or short-term jobs shadowing for a desired role. I know that we had one organization, and this specific individual had decided that they would like to be in a sales position. They had friends that were in sales, and they looked like they really enjoyed their jobs, and so this person thought, well, I'd like to do that. So they did some very short-term jobs shadowing and found out, nope, they didn't want to be in sales. So it really saved them a lot of time and the organization a lot of time and money in doing that. When you want to get an outside point of view on a single issue, it becomes great. Also, it can help you determine whether a specific mentor and mentee match might be a good fit long-term in what you're doing. So how does mentoring work? Well, in flash mentoring, the mentee has a very single-focused specific goal in what they're doing. Then they're given a pool of mentors, and from there they set up a one-time meeting to accomplish the goal, and that might lead to additional meetings if that's possible. So the way that you do that is one of the things that happens is, let's say that I'm looking for assistance on a problem I'm having. I'm working with a new project management software and I'm having some real problems with it. I can't move forward on it until I have the answers I need. So I search for a mentor that can assist me in doing this. And what happens is I find a mentor that can help me in being able to do that. It's a quick search and I'm able to get some help. We've got one specific client that is using this in the medical feel. People are looking for someone that can help them with a simple, specific procedure. They've learned it in training, they've probably practiced it, but they want to talk with someone and be able to shadow them who has more experience in this particular procedure so they can get different issues that overcome. So at this point in time, Sarah, would you see if we've got any questions about Flash mentoring?
Sure, Judy. A question we received is, how long would a Flash mentoring session usually last?
Well, we're talking about one or very short meetings. So if you've got one meeting, you might have two. At the most, I would say maybe three. So if you're looking about how many meetings you'd have, you start getting past about three pretty quick meetings, then I would say you probably are into a longer-term mentoring partnership. But the length of the meeting is really up to you. I mean, if you're looking for something very specific and you've got somebody that's going to help you with it, it really depends on what it is you're looking for. But, normally we say, if you're spending much more than an hour, then, you probably need an additional meeting or you've gone into a different type of mentoring. Good question. Good question. One of the things I want to say is for those of you that have sent in, if we can't get to all your questions, we'll try and get to them at the end, or we'll show you how you can actually, send it to it personally in doing that. So, Sarah, could you stop and take us through question number 3?
Sure, Judy. Our next poll question is, where is your organization's workforce located? Is it A, we're all in the same location? B, we have multiple locations? C, most people work in one location, but some work remotely? Or D, most people work remotely? So about half have voted. And Judy, we received quite a few questions on Flash mentoring, so we'll definitely circle back at the end if we have time.
Great. Glad to hear it.
Okay. So the voting has slowed down. Looks like 68% have voted we have multiple locations, followed by 20% with most people work in one location, but some work remotely.
Okay. And, this is what we see because we work with organizations that are spread out all over the U.S. or the world or whatever it might be. And the other thing that we have when you think about, people not being in the same location is they may work remotely or virtually. And they could be in the same city, but they're still working virtually 1, 2, or 3 days a week in what they're doing. So thinking about this idea of employees not being in the same location or multiple locations, we want to talk about another type of mentoring called virtual mentoring. Now, virtual mentoring is mentoring that doesn't take place face-to-face in what they're doing. Many people may call it distance mentoring in going forward. You're going to be using some type of technology, Skype, telephone, email, messaging, these types of things, but some type of a technology tool to be able to communicate back and forth. And it is typically used for workforces that are widely dispersed or have very, very different types of demanding schedules in what they're doing. Now, when you think about some of the benefits of virtual mentoring, some of those can really be the fact that you've got less restrictive schedules involved. It allows for meeting times to be more flexible. You don't have to set aside a specific formal meeting time. And you don't have to meet during working hours in doing this. In addition to that, you've got situations that are more inclusive for better matching potential. You've got larger populations to choose from. You've got access to individuals, who previously might have been unavailable for mentoring. And so therefore, you've got a larger pool of mentors and mentees. It really helps organizations share information across those wide distances and sometimes different cultures. So it kind of breaks down some of those silos that we go with. That alone gives individuals exposure to different parts of the organization. I can tell you that we have many, many, many stories of individuals who were a little concerned about virtual or distance mentoring in the beginning. But once they actually went through it, they found that they would have never gotten to know that part of the organization. They were never gotten to know what that organization did or people in that part of the organization if it hadn't been for a distance or virtual mentoring partnership. And then it also helps to manage impressions and interactions. It lessens inhibitions and increases communication by reducing possible biases that might exist. Getting to know people online is a lot less intimidating, and people really are used to meeting virtually. Think about it yourself. How many people do you feel like you know, but you've never met them face to face? And the other advantage is you don't have to be on the spot as you would with a face-to-face. You've got a little bit of thinking time that you can prepare or think things through in what you're doing. We also would like to talk about maybe some challenges. Now, when we use the word challenges, we're not talking about a disadvantage. We're not saying advantages and disadvantages. A challenge isn't a disadvantage. It's just something you need to think about in what you're doing so that you're ready for it before you start your mentoring partnership. Some of those challenges can be the inability to read body language. You know, we look at facial expressions and, gestures, and it's difficult to do that from a distance. Sometimes without that direct or face-to-face, individuals have to develop a sensitivity to messages that are normally communicated by body language. The mentee also can sometimes feel isolated without direct contact from the mentor in doing that. You also have to think about different time zones and what's going on. There can be an increased response time if the mentor or mentee can't be reached or doesn't respond. Also time zone differences and the impersonal prospect of email communications sometimes make it easier to delay or reschedule or procrastinate a meeting that you probably wouldn't do if you were walking down the hall and had to face that person face to face telling them you need to cancel the meeting. There's an unknown level of engagement, and again, part of that goes back to that difficulty of making direct observations or the possibility of feeling isolated in doing that. But really making sure that you feel that there's a large level of engagement from both the mentor and the mentee in what you're doing. And last, you can have technology problems in going. Got a technology you may use to communicate, but both of you aren't familiar with it. So you've got to make sure ahead of time that both of you are not going to get frustrated, as we did with our technology here, and you have to make sure that everybody can understand how to use the technology. Now, the way that Insala's technology helps to support virtual mentoring is that, first of all, you've got online profiles. So the point is that you actually can go in and find out information about an individual, which makes matching and pairing easier. And also there's a matching tool to help create those partnerships virtually. You've got document sharing tools, so the mentor and mentee can share documents back and forth and attachments and these types of things as they're going forward. You've got instant messaging that can be a part of your virtual mentoring, and you've got integration with video conferencing that allows you to host online meetings, and that video conferencing actually can allow you to feel like you're a bit face-to-face in what you're doing. So at this point in time, Sarah, have we got any questions that have come up about virtual or distance mentoring?
Yes, Judy. What are the differences to launching a program that is face-to-face versus virtual?
Good question. The differences are mainly in the way in how the mentoring program's set up and communicated. Virtual mentoring can't be successful if the participants do not truly understand the advantages and why it's necessary to overcome some of those possible challenges. In addition, both the mentor and the mentee need to be willing to try this type of mentoring. There are many advantages, but if either the mentor or the mentee is really against it, they just don't want to do this type of mentoring, chances are that partnership is not going to work. You can't force people together. In addition, it's even more important that mentors and mentees receive training on their roles. As an example, one of the exercises that we do in our training classes is an exercise around learning and communication styles. Because as adults, we have a tendency to communicate and provide information to others the best way that we receive it. So, I can be one kind of learner as a mentor, but my mentee might not be that same kind of learner. So I need to understand my learning style, and I need to understand my mentee's learning style so that I can make changes and ensure it's going to be a good communication process in what we do. So again, that becomes really, really important when it comes to looking at virtual or distance mentoring. So the next kind of mentoring we want to talk about is group mentoring. Now, group mentoring is exactly what it says. It says sharing information in a group setting. And this can be done in a situation where you've got one mentor and several mentees, or one mentee that's got several mentors and what they're doing. What it does is it really solves the issue. If you have got too many mentees and you haven't got enough mentors, which is normally what happens many times. You normally don't have any problem finding the mentees. It's finding the mentors that becomes an issue in doing that. So this helps to really solve that problem. Some of the benefits of group mentoring are you've got an opportunity for more individuals and more mentees to participate. Again, probably are going to have a lot more individuals that are volunteering and wanting to be a mentee than a mentor. So this gives the opportunity for more mentees to be able to participate. You've got support from mentors and mentees, both inside of a group mentoring situation. There's more knowledge and expertise that you can gain throughout the group. So the point is you've got individuals that have got a lot of different perspectives about a certain topic in what's going on. And diversity and increased awareness, being able to work again with all different types and kinds of people. And you actually can do this whether it's face-to-face or virtually in doing that, and it's a great team building opportunity in moving forward. So again, you're looking at a type of mentoring that really gets a lot of ideas together, a lot of knowledge. But some of the challenges can be that it's not meeting an individual need. You're working on the group need, but it may not be meeting the individual need. And just as I talked about learning styles before, you could have very group dynamics in learning styles, and it may not work for someone. And there really many times can be no personal one-on-one individualized relationship that is offered. There can be scheduling challenges in doing that, trying to get everybody together. And then one of the biggest things that is important in a mentor-mentee partnership is the confidentiality. And one of the things that you find is the more people that are involved, you may have a chance that that confidentiality is not honored by everybody. So you need to think about those kind of things ahead of time before as you move forward. Now, the way Ensola's technology supports group mentoring is that you can go online and find a group, find out what that group offers, what it's about, what are they going to focus on, and also find out about the members, who are the people that are going to be involved in the group. So it allows you to do a lot of research up front to really determine if group mentoring is going to be for you. So, Sarah, did we have any questions specifically around group mentoring?
Yes, Judy, we did. How do you decide on the topic of conversation in a group mentoring session?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that really is how your technology is a main focus, because what you're going to be doing is you're really going to be kind of advertising. This is the topic that we're going to be talking about. And so, and you know, tell the group, if you're going to be doing group mentoring, tell the group what the topic is going to be about, what the focus of the group is, and really kind of just, you know, kind of advertise it and what you're doing. And again, having the technology and online tool to be able to do that can be very helpful. It helps people to decide if the group is going to work for them or not, and then just make sure you stay true to your focus after what you've done. So, very good question. Do that. So, Sarah, could you take us through our next poll?
Sure, Judy. Our next poll question is, are the individuals at your organization in touch with the current technology trends? Is it A, yes, they all are, B, the younger individuals are, C, no, they are not, or D, unsure? Well, Judy, about half have voted. We'll give it just a few more seconds. Okay, Judy, it looks like 36% said the younger individuals are, followed by about 28% saying yes, they all are.
Okay. Yeah, and that 36% for some of the younger individuals was probably fairly obvious that was going to be a leader in that. But you know what it does is it actually kind of leads us into our next type of mentoring called reverse mentoring and doing it and going forward. Now, reverse mentoring takes the traditional mentoring roles and reverses them. That's exactly what it does. Your traditional mentoring role normally has somebody who is older, has someone who's at a higher job grade level, someone who's been with the organization longer, and that's kind of what we've seen many times as traditional. In reverse mentoring, you're going to have matching and pairing with individuals that are, the mentee is actually probably going to be that individual. The mentee is going to be the individual who's older, the individual who's been with the organization longer, the individual who has a higher job grade level, and the mentee is just the reverse of doing that. It was first popularized by former GE chairman Jack Welch. It was developed about a decade ago, but it's becoming more and more popular in what we're doing. We worked with a large aeronautical manufacturer, and we were there and we were giving a talk, and what we found out was the individual who was the general manager of the plant, and it was a very large plant that was there, and a gentleman very well known, had been with the organization a very long period of time and was very well respected, and they were playing the role of mentee. Their mentor was actually an individual who had been with the organization just a little over a year, and about a year and a half, and was younger, and you know, was a lower job grade level in what they were doing. But what the mentee wanted to find out, what this GM wanted to find out, was what it felt like to be a new individual within their organization. You know, it'd been a long time since they'd been a new individual in the organization, and they felt like they were losing touch with what the organization was all about. Now, this wasn't just a very quick. They actually did this for about 6 months and went through several aspects. They had a plan in place and so on. But again, it was because this individual felt like they'd lost touch and they really wanted to work with the younger individual who'd been with the organization a lot less time than the GM, and it worked out very, very well in taking that. You know, many times we hear this phrase, and it was brought to us by Alan Weber, which was the co-founder of Fast Company, but I think it's one of those things that we can all begin to relate to. By the time you're in your 40s and 50s, you're not in touch with the future the same way the young 20-somethings are. They come with fresh eyes, open mind, and instant links to the technology of the future. in going for that. And you just talked about the fact that 36% that said the younger individuals are more in touch. Now, we're not saying that, the baby boomers aren't in touch. What we're saying is these individuals are coming in with fresh eyes and open minds in what they're doing, and it can be a great benefit to the organization taking reverse mentoring or development forward. So how do you make reverse mentoring work? Well, first of all, you've got to define the expectations of both parties. Make sure that the individuals that are in the mentor role and the individuals in the mentee role really understand what the expectations are and how they're going to work together, and they've got to be willing to learn on both sides. Now, we hear all the time from individuals who are in the mentor role that they're excited because they learn a lot from their mentees. And so in this particular situation, both mentor and mentee have got to be real open to the learning they can get from each other. They've also got to leave their comfort zones. So the individual who is older or been with the organization longer or, has at a higher job grade level, and because they're at that level, people depend on them to have certain answers. They've got to leave that comfort zone and open themselves up to this other individual at a lower job grade level or a younger or lower title and be ready for what they can learn. They've also, got to overcome some differences and be transparent about how they feel and how they can move forward. And then they both have got to commit to that relationship and know that it's based on what they really want to accomplish. So, Sarah, have we had any questions on reverse mentoring?
Yes, Judy, we had. A question we received is, what determines reverse? Is it age, experience, job level, something else?
That's a great, no, thank you for that one. That's a really good one. It's really based on what somebody wants to learn and who's the best person to do that. Any mentoring partnership that goes on is based on what is it the mentee needs to learn and who's the best person to work with them on that. I know we worked with many senior executives in a global organization, and they talked about the fact that they were out of touch with technology and the social media type of communication in doing this. So an individual was at a lower job grade level and also was much younger. That was the criteria there. So it could be someone that's younger, could be someone who's been with the organization for a less period of time, and just as the example I gave about the GM at the aero manufacturing facility, and they went with someone that was much younger. So in that case, it was not only age, but it was also somebody who'd been with the organization, a shorter period of time. So what really makes it reverse mentoring are those types of criteria, but it's still got to be based on what is it the mentee wants to learn and who's the best person to do that. And getting out of that role of thinking that the only person that can be a good mentor is somebody who is older, somebody who's at the higher job grade level, or someone that has been with the organization longer. But really great question. Okay, at this point in time, we want to move forward with our last type of mentoring that we want to talk about. We want to talk about the concept of speed mentoring. Now, speed mentoring is a series of short, focused conversations about very specific targeted questions in what you're doing. There's one-to-one interaction. The mentee rotates to several mentors going through this, and quite honestly, the method is very often compared to something like speed dating in taking that forward. Now, it can be very beneficial in doing this if you have got situations where the mentee is able to experience many different interactions in a short period of time. And so this gives a mentee the ability to kind of meet a whole lot of people. It's useful in assisting with mentor matching because if I'm a mentee, I can kind of get to know, the possibilities of mentors that are out there. And if I'm a mentor, I can see what the population of mentees is. It can be used as a part of a broader mentoring program in what you're doing. And the networking opportunities for both the mentors and the mentees are great because, again, you're meeting people you probably hadn't met before in being able to do this. Now, our technology helps to support speed mentoring by helping you to create a speed mentoring event. You've got internal marketing tools to invite participants to the event and schedule them in the event, and also allow participants to kind of find out who's going to be on hand to as possible mentors or individuals that are be there. Now, in addition to this, you have also got to inform the mentees that they need to prepare very specific targeted questions to give to the mentors. I mean, this is not just a time to sit and chat. There needs to be very specific targeted questions that the mentee is going to ask the mentors. You're not picking a mentor at this time, and you also need to prepare the mentors with what are some of the possible, types of questions they're going to get. And this becomes very important in doing that. Sarah, do we have any questions coming up on speed mentoring?
Yes, Judy. A question we received is, what are the elements of a speed mentoring program, such as timing, communications, setup, etc.?
Well, again, first of all, what you've got to do is to make sure that everybody understands what this is about. Again, it's not about choosing a mentor match on the spot, and it's, again, not just about having a casual conversation. We mentioned the mentees need to have specific questions ready ahead of time, and you want to kind of prime the mentors for the kinds of things that they're liable to get. It's going to be real important. You've got a coordinator that's going to help explain the process to everybody, get them ready as the event begins. Make sure you've got things like name tags and some kind of a sheet where the individuals can make notes to themselves, and somebody who can keep time, and make sure individuals are moving along and doing this. Don't have one group, mentor-mentee group, that's kind of holding everybody up as you go forward. Most of the times the sessions are about 4 to 5 minutes, but a part of that time has to include moving on to the next mentor. So you've got to make sure that you have somebody that's going to keep all that set up. The other thing, and we saw this as a real problem with one client, you've got to have the room set up so the participants can move quickly. So if in that 45 minutes, and part of that has to be you're going on to the next individual you're going to talk to, make sure you've got your room set up in such a way that people can move quickly in what they're doing. So as we go forward, we want to kind of review these 5 types of mentoring. We talked about flash mentoring, and it was great to hear. There's a lot more questions coming up on there. But flash mentoring, it's a short-term objective in a low-pressure environment. You might want to use it around, hard skills, and, it helps to get an outside perspective and possibly a better understanding about something. Another thing we talked about was virtual mentoring. And again, this is mentoring that doesn't take place face-to-face. It could be they never meet. It could be that chances are in a 10-month relationship they only meet once or twice in doing that. But the biggest portion of what they're doing is not face-to-face. And you're probably using more technology tools, and you've got to be aware of that. And it's usually used when your population is rather widespread, which many of you indicated that you have got individuals that either work remotely or spread out all over and doing that. We also talked about group mentoring. This is great when you've got several individuals with a similar focus, or a situation where you've got more mentees than mentors, because one mentor could have several mentees, or one mentee could have more than one mentor in what they're doing. And then we talked about reverse mentoring and that great question we got. But again, reverse mentoring is when you have someone that normally is at a higher, older, been with the organization longer, and they're the mentee, while the mentor is usually somewhere who is younger, lower job grade level, been with the organization a shorter period of time. But again, I want to reiterate, it all goes back to what is it the mentee needs to learn in being able to do that. That's what tells you what kind of mentoring. And then last we talked about speed mentoring. It's a series of short, focused conversation. It allows the mentees to meet and network with several mentor prospects. It also allows the mentors to get to know several individuals they might not have ever met before or needed to know in doing that. So at this point in time, Sarah, will you take us through our last poll?
Sure, Judy. Our final poll question is, do you think your organization would benefit from implementing modern mentoring? Is it A, yes, B, no, or C, unsure? So about half have voted, Judy. We'll give it just a few more seconds. All right, Judy. Looks like 72% said yes, followed by about 20 said unsure.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's some that are unsure. You still got to think about it. But for that 72% that said that, you know, they want to think about offering a modern mentoring model, first of all, what we want you to do is to think about each of the models and which one of those is really going to meet some of your organization's needs. And you want to do that by thinking about how have the learning styles evolved with individuals in your organization. You mentioned in the very first poll as we went forward about the fact that, you know, you've got a situation going where, you know, 48% of you said that connecting learning to career development and leadership development and that this was an issue. So, you know, think about those learning styles in your organization. Think about your last program and, you know, your current program if you've got one, and if you don't, your, you know, previous program, and how successful was it, and what was it that was a problem, and could one of these types of modern mentoring help with that issue? And then what's the current and future demographic breakdown going to look like as you go forward, and based on what it is you want them to learn. And remember what we talked about, that the millennials in going forward. One last thing that we would like to talk about is any of you that are going to be at ATD Tech in January 24th and 26th. I'm actually going to be there on Friday the 26th to give a talk on connecting employees online through mentoring. I'm going to be there Thursday and Friday, and if any of you would like to set up a meeting ahead of time or while I'm there to talk about this, please send us an email. You can send it to me at jcorner@ensala.com, or here's my direct link to my time trait book in doing that. And one last thing, just before we get to our final questions, I'd like for you to check your chat box, and you're going to see a link to our next mentoring webinar that will be on January 31st. And it's called Closing the Generation Gap Through Mentoring. In addition to that, in the chat room, you're going to see some articles that we have published about all these different types of mentoring as you're going through. So, Sarah, we've got some time left. Can we talk about some of those additional questions that have come up?
Absolutely. The first question that we should discuss is, what strategies do you recommend for creating a pool of mentors for Flash mentoring?
Well, first of all, what you need to do is you need to make sure that the individual that is going through, and they're actually going to, you know, be in that group, that what they do is they go through and they indicate that they would like to do something like Flash mentoring. They've got to have in their profile that this is something they're open to do, and then they've got to indicate in what areas would they be interested in doing Flash mentoring and doing that. So, you know, the mentor needs to make sure that this is something they want to do, indicate it, and then what would they like to be involved in a Flash mentoring partnership. Okay?
Thanks, Judy. The next question is, why has it taken so long for reverse mentoring to become more mainstream?
That's a good question. Um, I think part of it is for all the things that we talked about that are issues, that people have really got to, understand and be willing to learn and let go of some of those traditional things. Keep in mind, we've talked about the fact that mentoring's thousands of years old, and I will have to tell you that although I've been doing this for 30 years, it, is only probably in the last 15 plus that mentoring has really been looked at as a business strategy. So, all those things that we talk about, which is, be willing to learn and leaving your comfort zone and thinking about some of those differences, I think is probably part of the answer to that question. Plus, I think there's new topics and technologies and those types of things, and also having possibly more of a respect for someone's knowledge instead of just thinking about it in terms of their age and doing some of that. But I like that question.
Thanks, Judy. The next question I have for you is, how do you monitor the outcome of a flash mentoring event?
That's a good one. Probably not going to, when we talk in terms of measurement, we talk in terms of quality and quantity in being able to measure. And you may not be able to do that quite as well in quantifying it, but your best bet is going to be making sure that you're running a survey. Making sure, now in our technology tool as an example, when individuals have a partnership and they leave that partnership, there's an automatic little survey that comes up as to why they left the partnership and how did it work. So I would say probably being able to, you'd have to run a survey periodically and keep track of the results is going to be your best way, because part of that survey, can also be what they learned and how it benefited them in being able to do that. But I think probably that type of survey tool is going to be your best.
Thanks, Judy. Well, it looks like we're about out of time today. Judy, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, the biggest thing I wanted to say was, again, if you've got any questions and we didn't get a chance to answer them, and we do apologize for the technical difficulties in doing that. But if you didn't, have a chance to either ask your question or get an answer to it, please make sure that you send it to us at info@ensala.com or personally to me at jcorner@ensala.com and going forward. And if you want to set a meeting with me, I'd love to talk with you in doing that. And I would like to thank everybody for their participation, their patience with us as we went through a couple issues. And Sarah, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Judy, and thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. If you'd like a copy of today's slideshow or a recording of today's webinar, you can find links to both on our Mentoring Thought Leaders group page on LinkedIn later today. If we were not able to get to your questions, or if you think of any additional questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to email us at info@ensala.com, or you can contact Judy directly through jcorner@ensala.com. We truly value your feedback on our webinars. Thanks again for coming and have a wonderful day.